Okay, we're back to talk about Paradise, Season 2, Episode 5, The Mailman. This episode written by Katie French and directed by Liza Johnson. Several years before the apocalypse event, Mailman Gary befriends Ennis online, and the two get interested in conspiracy theories and planning for an extinction-level event. Gary learns that his post office was built as a fallout shelter in the 1950s, so he begins getting it ready to use for any sort of future event. They recruit 5 other people to live in the shelter with them, each with various set of skills. And when the event happens after the Antarctic volcano eruption, the 7 make their way to the shelter. Along the way, Gary and Ennis pick up Terry and a neglected boy named Bean. In the next few years, the group is able to survive, but Ennis becomes more controlling. Gary builds Terry a radio and does admit that he is in love with her, but Ennis destroys it after Terry uses it to try to contact Xavier and her family. A peaceful group arrives by train, claiming that they are using Army biodiesel fuel to travel to the bunker in Colorado. Before Terry can learn about this, Gary kills Ennis so that he will not be able to tell her. In the present, Gary lies to Xavier, claiming that the group is hostile and they kidnapped Terry and Bean. Xavier builds a bomb and has a plan to distract them and rescue Terry, unaware that she is not actually there. I like this episode, but we are still far, far away from the bunker.
Yeah.
That you okay with that so far? We haven't been back there in a while.
Um, well, I started to feel a little bit frustrated because they did leave us on a cliffhanger there with
Hmm.
Jane killing the president and everything. Um, and then they left us on a cliffhanger here also,
Yep.
right? And it's not really, I'm relatively okay with the fact that we haven't gone back to the bunker yet. But what I started to feel a little bit frustrated about is now I want next week's episode to be 2 things, and I feel like it can only be one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you could tell by we don't necessarily need to give it away, but the title of next week's episode, which is available, will tell us exactly where we are next week, which is going to leave one of these
Yeah.
two storylines hanging here. Which means at that point we'll be in episode 7, which means we're in the penultimate episode. So it's like a lot to do in 2 different locations.
Yeah, and I can kind of, it comes into view for me, I think, how I expect that structure will probably play out. So if we're going to be left hanging here, that's the thing more that, you asked whether I was frustrated about not getting back to the bunker. And in some ways, yes, and I want to pick up that thread of the story. But it's weird because when I was watching this episode, I guess I actually expected this episode to go further than it did.
Mm, yes,
And
yes.
so for it to leave off right where it did, which does feel like a cliffhanger, now I'm a little bit okay. So if we go back to the bunker, like probably, so we go back to the bunker next week. All right. Then we go back to Atlanta in episode 7, and then everything comes together in episode 8. Right. And okay, fine. But man, people who are watching this show week to week are just gonna binge this so fast, right?
Yeah, that's
Like
right.
because it's like one of those things. I always think about it more in terms of reading a book that does this kind of thing, where there are different perspectives, and you leave off one character and you really want to, see what happens next, but the next 5 chapters are about different things. You just keep reading the book,
That's
you know.
right. Yeah.
Um, this structure is similar to that sort of thing. So not a big complaint on my end. Just I mean, I guess I'm frustrated in the way they want me to be
Yeah, yeah.
when it comes down to it.
In the way that keeps you watching, certainly from week to week, because we
Yeah,
want to know what happened. I felt exactly the same way you did. I assumed up until the last 5 minutes of this episode, when it looks like the clock is running down, that oh, Xavier's going to learn what's happening here. He's going to come up with his plan. He's going to rescue Terry. They're going to reunite, and we're all on the way back to Colorado. And then they throw this twist in there at the end about Ennis is not thrown them under the bus. Terry has not been kidnapped, seemingly, unless it's by Gary. And so now we've got to deal with, yeah, this whole plan. And then how does Xavier learn that that's not the case, and then get them back from wherever they are?
yeah. Let's talk about that because I was interested to ask you. This was maybe the big thing that I had in mind as I was mentally kind of preparing for a conversation. You called it a twist, and that's fair. I don't know if it felt like a twist to me, so I was curious how
Mm,
much of it did to you. Um, in other words, I never trusted that guy.
Hmm.
I didn't. The show, like, they didn't manage to get me trusting Gary to where it felt like a rug pull. I was suspicious of him throughout, and I don't know how much of it is the actor Cameron Britton, who I think is very good.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh yeah.
primarily familiar with from Mindhunter,
Yep.
where he plays like a charming serial killer guy,
Yeah.
right? So, and like his demeanor, I think, is somewhat similar in this episode, or similar enough that throughout I was like, I don't know if I trust this guy. And there are also some ways in which he is like semi incel coded or adjacent or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but yeah, I didn't really trust him, so it didn't land for me as so much of a shocking twist, I guess. But they still left us where we don't even know what happened to Terry. We don't have any idea where she is,
Right.
right? Like in your summary, I think you said something like Terry's not there at the train. We don't. I mean, we actually don't know. Maybe she is there.
Yeah.
You know, maybe she did find out anyway that this group is planning to take the train to Colorado, and Gary's trying to use Xavier to um, undermine that, right?
Yeah, I think
And
that's
their ability to do so.
that's a great point. There's either two paths here that we're going. One is, this is idiotic of you, Xavier, to go in and take on all these people. Go ahead and try. That way I've got Terry all to myself. Or, yes, you're right. They could have, I didn't even think about this, but they could have Terry. I need somebody to help me get her out. Then I'll take care of you so that I can still have Terry either way. And she doesn't go off to Colorado.
Yeah. Although I don't, it's I don't necessarily think that he's that evil.
Mm,
So I don't know. I'm curious about it, right? Like I feel like he is. It lands well enough to think that he would be trying to sabotage Terry's ability um, to leave.
yeah, yeah.
Was he already like planning to sabotage the mail truck plan? I don't know, but maybe he hadn't even. I don't feel like this Gary character had formulated a real rational plan or
Mm,
whatever. It's almost like he kills Enos in that spur of the moment kind of
yes.
way,
Yeah.
where he just can't deal with the idea that they're going to go back and tell Terry and she's going to be gone, like that. So, um,
How much do you get a sense of how much time you think has passed between when he kills Enos and Xavier shows up? We're talking a few days? Is this weeks? I mean, they only said that the train was going to be there for 2 weeks, so it can't be that much time.
yeah, I feel like it must have not been that much time. I don't know if they tell us precisely. I guess it would still be a question of whether you believe what Gary says, but
Yeah.
he does say a number of days, like 11 or 12 days or something like that, to Xavier towards the beginning of the episode. So, yeah. Uh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, this is very coincidental, right? If Xavier managed to get there a couple weeks earlier, then Terry would just be hanging out,
Yeah, exactly,
uh,
exactly. Yeah. And I think
but
in the end
who
I was
knows?
just too gullible and bought in too much to I mean this could be right. They Gary could have her locked up somewhere, but bought into the idea that Ennis was sort of becoming a bad guy of sorts. He does have this touching moment with Terry near the end, but he was becoming this bad guy
Yeah,
where you could see maybe it's not too far a stretch that after a few years he becomes this person who refuses to let people leave and and he would turn them in if it came down to that because they're sort of positioning him as this jerk who's gonna do all that he can to protect the group. And so I don't know, that's where I sort of got the sense of why this transpired perhaps the way that I thought that it did. But yeah, that or
yeah,
why I thought it was a bigger twist maybe than you did.
yeah. Well, I mean, I was just watching most of the episode unsure about whether
Yeah,
I trusted Gary and what he
yeah.
would. I was just suspicious. I can't say that I watched it all on a first pass thinking, oh, I've got this figured out the whole time. Like, no, Gary's actually the bad guy here. because they do plant some seeds that make us suspicious of Enos and all of that. It would seem that he actually did destroy the radio, for example, um, and so on. Speaking of the timing of everything, this is part of why I hesitated a little bit a moment ago, because I guess it also means that Jack and Crystal left very recently,
Mm, yes. Yeah.
where that felt like it was longer ago somehow, the way it was presented. But that must have also only been a few weeks, I guess.
Yeah, this community, this trading village has popped up pretty quickly, it seems, and they've joined that. For some reason, I thought that was longer as well, but I guess the timing doesn't exactly work out.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter all that much how long it's been. I did feel like, did I miss anything here? Let me ask you, what happened to the other people? There's like three other people, I think, who just kind of disappear from the story, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. The carpenter, the
Yeah,
gardener,
okay.
and the survivalist guy. Yeah.
I didn't miss what happened to them. We just didn't see what happened to them.
I have
Then,
no, maybe they moved on. Maybe I have no idea. Maybe they're still there.
I mean, it seemed to me like they were already gone by the time that Jack and Crystal were leaving. At least we don't see them in that scene or anything like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that matters either. Although I think Gary does say something towards the beginning of the episode about everyone being taken or something. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's definitely some of the questions here I'm really intrigued by in a way where, well, I just want to watch you know, the follow up of the story to find out. There are a couple of little things where I feel like, why didn't the show just fill this in a little bit better? And I don't know if they will in the future.
That
And
that
that was
was
one of them. Like, what
ex
happened to these other people?
exactly my critique. I mean, not necessarily a critique, but a comment that we're gonna have to definitely spend some time going through this, presumably in episode 7 now, figuring out what's going on. I, I suppose we can't count anything out that, something tragic could happen to Terry, could happen to Bean, something certainly tragic could happen to Gary. So we're gonna have to resolve that before, we have any sort of reunion back at the back of the bunker, if there is one at the end of the season.
Right. And speaking of timing, I'm wondering about the timing of Link and the others showing up outside the bunker
Hmm.
in relation to the story inside the bunker and now in relation to the story in Atlanta. And I don't know if it's entirely clear, but I think the show's lining it up to where it's like these things are happening at the same time. Because when in the previous episode before Link and the others go, Link and Geiger or whatever,
Hmm.
I feel like there's some remark that I'm now reading as we're not going to wait for the train people anymore. We've waited long enough.
Yeah, so I did have that same question, which is there's a large convoy of people that makes its way to the bunker. But I was presuming that that convoy is absent of these people that are trying to slowly make it there via via train. They have the limitations of only can go where the tracks are. They have to have certain kind of fuel. So they're sort of left behind, as it were, as the rest of the group tries to make its way into the bunker.
Yeah, I think that's right. Really curious to see what happens here. The thing is, though, too, if we're going to speculate at all, I believe when Gary kills Enos, Bean sees him do that, right?
That's what it implies. He's sort of off behind the woods or
Yeah,
something and sees this.
I think that's implied pretty strongly. And if that's the case, then I would almost guess that okay, Bean runs and tells Terry, and they flee or something. Maybe they are on the train, right? Maybe they did figure it out, and now Gary's trying to sabotage it.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know.
that's yeah, that's a good point. So the he has lost them because being witness that they ran because they're afraid of him.
Yeah.
And so he knows if Xavier finds out that they're gone and he did something, Xavier's going to kill him. So let's just send Xavier into this, in this situation with a bunch of armed guards, and they'll take care of him. So I don't have to worry about it. I don't have her. I can't actually show him or figure out
Yeah.
where she is, and so let's sort of handle this situation that way. Then maybe I can go search for them if I want to.
Yeah, I think it must be something like that. I find it hard to imagine that Gary's got them chained up in the basement or something. It just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like that would fit quite right with who this guy is and the whole situation. So yeah, really curious to see yeah, further thoughts on the baby. You put something about the baby in her notes here.
I'm just further convinced that this was just not. I mean, he's like on the top of the train, peering with the binoculars, and the baby's pressed against the train while he's trying to, see who's down there. And then he won't give the baby to Gary, but he will give it to
Hmm.
to Jack and to Crystal. Was that her name?
I believe so, yeah.
It just, I'm still struggling with what the purpose of having this baby here is.
Well, first of all, Ryan, babies are built to survive
That's
earthquakes.
You can survive a bomb if you can
So
survive an earthquake. Yeah.
I don't know what that problem is. But yeah, no. I mean, it's kind of I don't know how I feel about the baby being in the story at all,
Yeah.
but I don't want to harp on that too much. I kind of have already on previous episodes a little bit. Um, it worked relatively well for me here. It made sense to me that Xavier didn't trust Gary with the baby. And
Yeah.
then you get this moment where he gets to say something about Terry viewing the bedtime story as sacred or whatever.
Mm.
So the fact that she would trust Jack with it, I don't know. It all works for me, like kind of
Yeah.
well enough. But it is just okay. So maybe this is part of what bothers me because it's almost like a trick, right? Like you have no choice but to care about the baby because it's a baby
Yes.
as a member of the audience, basically. Um, but they fridge the baby's mother, and Link doesn't know the baby exists.
Right.
So I don't know how that's going to go either. And
Yeah. What's
if they
the baby
decided
is
to do this, I guess they have reason.
the baby's still going to be an issue when they make it when and if they make it back to the bunker because they're going to presumably connect the baby with her father, and then yeah, that's going to be a whole deal of how that's handled. Maybe Link is not much of a part of the story after this season, but I just don't know.
Well, I mean, really, you can't know how he's going to react, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that everyone would say, oh, you've shown up with a baby that you say is mine.
Yeah.
I believe you and I love the baby now. You know what I mean? It's possible he could
Yeah.
react another way. So,
Let me ask you another question
yeah.
about Xavier. They talk about this point at the end where Terry, sorry, where Gary admits to being in love with her. Xavier, says, "I knew you were hiding something." Shakes his hand. You think Xavier believes that that's all he was hiding?
I mean, it does sort of feel like it. Does sort of feel like it. Um, I'm not positive, you know. I mean, on the one hand, Xavier has shown himself to be pretty savvy, whatever word we
Yeah,
might want there. But there have been elements to his character where he's felt at times to maybe a little naive. You know, in the previous episode, when he goes to the stranger's house to get Annie help with her pregnancy, um, he's not punished for his naivete. He actually manages to get help. It's like, oh, I trusted in the goodness of people and it worked out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But if he has that tendency at play here, um, that could be a problem. So I guess I'm not sure though, because throughout the episode he does seem suspicious of Gary. He's not trusting Gary immediately.
yeah,
So is that moment sufficient um, for him to think, oh well, it's because Gary was hiding these romantic feelings for my wife, and
yeah.
that was it, you know?
I just think if I'm Xavier and I've had the training that I've had, I would want to put, maybe he will, I would want to go and try to put eyes on Terry before I set off a bomb somewhere and create this distraction to try to get her. I mean, he's going to have to do some reconnaissance to find out where she is, right? Not just trust Gary that he's telling the truth about that.
Yeah. My fear, though, is that it's not going to go like that. He's been duped by Gary sufficiently, and so he will set off the bomb and like manage to find Terry,
Mm.
and then we'll have that moment where she's happy to see him, but really confused about what he's doing, and then they try to figure it out in the middle of a gunfight kind of thing. That's the sort of thing I would expect from the show, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Oh, I'd hate to think about the outcome of where like um bomb goes off, something inadvertent happens, you know, injures Terry. She's,
Oh,
she's dying. Something happens. Collins is like now out for revenge. And that's why he's going back to the bunker to, kill them all. Something like that.
yeah, I hope not. I hope not. There was I was watching something else recently where they did one of those things where uh, it was actually literally a Chekhov's gun kind of situation. The original thing that Anton Chekhov said, if you introduce a gun, the second act has to go off by the third act or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
It was very much that, and then it was just like gun goes off randomly, and then this is it's almost a cliche thing where it's almost like the camera pans and you slowly discover that this character that you love has been shot. You know what I mean?
uh,
So I hope they don't do anything like that because it feels a little cheap. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like you
Chekhov's
can have
bomb. Chekhov's
character,
bomb. Yeah,
you can have character deaths and stuff like that, but that particular move of there's a lot of chaos and then oh no, this person was just got shot accidentally. Oh,
yeah,
that sort of thing is almost like
yeah.
I don't know, it's a little worn out in my mind. So hopefully we don't have something like that happen, and they all survive and they take the train to Colorado, and this all seems interesting enough to me in terms of how those things come together, right? If you do have Xavier and Terry and the people on the train returning to the bunker, and Link and his group outside the bunker, and then what's going on inside the bunker, and all of that sort of coming to a head to conclude the season. That'd work. I wish there were more than 8 episodes, too. Eight
Yeah.
episodes is
I
too
just
short.
I don't want to get hung up on the timing, but I don't think we know how long it takes the train to go from one place to the next place, how far they're able to go on a quote unquote tank of fuel, but then they have to stay for 2 weeks. It's like, so, I mean, Lincoln's clearly not going to just sit out there for 2 or 4 or 6 weeks and, wait to get let in. So, as you were alluding to earlier, what's the alignment of this timing to make this all work out here as we approach the end of the season?
Yeah. I almost feel like the situation at the bunker is likely to come to a head meaningfully
Yeah.
before the Atlanta group gets there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Um, all right. Anything else we want to hit on this one?
I think that's good. I think we're good here.
Yeah, I think we're good. It was a good episode. And then, look,
Hmm.
I enjoyed Cameron Britton's performance in it. I don't know what's going to happen to Gary. Part of me feels like he's not long for this story, but we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
not that he's necessarily going to die, but he's going to be found out. He's not going to be like
Yeah.
welcomed into the group or whatever. So
Go watch him on
we'll see.
on Mindhunter. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like there was some rumor about, hey, maybe they actually will make more Mindhunter again. Talking
Yes.
about a show that's been like canceled and rumored and canceled and rumored, and we're probably never getting any more Mindhunter. We are going to get some more Paradise. We'll be back next week talking about season 2, episode 6. Hopefully, you will join us. And hopefully, you enjoyed the podcast. If so, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out tvobsessive.com. Find written work on all sorts of TV shows there. you want to follow the site on social media, search for TV Obsessive, you should find us. And as for the podcast, we'll be back with you next week.
All right, then we will see you then.